For nearly half a century, Joan Crawford was the essence of glamorous Hollywood. Having a family of her own became an important measure of success to Joan, so she adopted 4 children. Our next guest is Joan Crawford's eldest daughter. She has written this book, Mommy Dearest, in which she tells the story of her childhood growing up amidst a bizarre mixture of loving attention and cruel, abusive punishments. Would you welcome Christina Crawford to our show? My first impression, one senses a lot of sarcasm in that title, Mommy Dearest.
Irony?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it was originally a term of endearment that we used as children, and later on it was the way that my mother insisted that we address her.
I recently did a one-on-one interview with the editor of Hustler magazine, who had been shot down and who is now partially paralyzed. Larry Flint. And before I did the interview, I talked with the doctor, and he said the one thing that he didn't want to do, the man is in excruciating pain from morning till night, is talk about that factor, the pain. And it occurs to me that what you're doing, what you have done, through writing this book and all, through making all these various appearances as you've made, many of which I've seen, would bring back that pain. You're reliving it again.
Well,
do you get that feeling at all?
Certainly writing the book was reliving it to a great extent. There were many days when I sat at the typewriter and cried. As I've traveled across the country talking to people, what has happened is quite different than that. I think what happens is that people have come to me and told me that if you change the name and the rather extraordinary setting that the book takes place in, that I have written their story and that I have given them courage and hope for their own lives. And also it's interesting, some teenagers have begun reading the book, and they have told their parents, and their parents have told me that their kids have come to them and said, I really appreciate what we have in our family.
The one positive thing that I would think that it is doing, one of the very serious problems in this country and probably many other countries, is child abuse.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that it's reached almost epidemic proportions now.
You describe part of your life as being a happy life.
Yes.
I mean, parties like, you were like Cinderella in a way.
Yes.
And yet you write about the night raids, which, you know, once you've read one of those passages, it doesn't leave you. You know, you remember that. And the thing that I remember mostly is that your brother was literally tied to his bed for, what, the first 12 years of his life?
Yes, until he was about 12 or 13.
Would you describe what occurred, if you will, at the night raids?
Well, it's difficult to paraphrase any one of them, but they were wild rampages that began in the middle of the night, and I don't really know what started them or what caused them. But I would be asleep in my bed. I was a very young child, and something would have taken my mother like a possession almost. And she did have a drinking problem in those years, which I don't think was well known when I was a child, but certainly was well known later. And I don't know what it was, a combination of drinking, being alone, she had no husband, maybe her own fear, but she took it out on us or on our home. And
on all 4 of you?
Mainly my brother and myself. Mainly my brother and myself. My sisters are many years younger than I am, and by
Why do you
the time
suppose just the 2 of you and your brother?
Well, we were the only children in the house at that time.
Ah, where were your sisters?
My sisters are 8 years younger, so they weren't even born, or they were tiny infant babies.
Then the night that you described in the book where she dragged you out of bed, literally, because you hadn't cleaned her dressing room properly.
Yes.
Describe that.
Well, as a punishment for something that I had done, I was supposed to clean her dressing room during the day, and I had scrubbed the floor, and the nurse had said that I'd done a good job. I was 9 years old. And in the middle of the night, my mother decided that I hadn't done a good job, so she took me out of bed and beat me with a can of cleanser until the can exploded all over.
Bonami, wasn't it?
Yes, and then for the rest of that night and into the morning, I had to work and clean that room.
And your brother was where at the time? Tied in bed?
Yes.
Tell the yellow dress story, because that was your favorite dress. That's also stayed with me very...
Yes, I was 4 years old, or maybe 5 at the most, and I had to take a nap every afternoon. And I was sort of daydreaming and running my finger over the pattern in the wallpaper, and I accidentally pulled a few little pieces off. When my mother found out about it, she became very angry. She went into my closet, took out my yellow dress, took a pair of scissors, cut it to shreds, and told me that I was going to have to wear that for a week. And if anybody asked me why I was in that condition, I was simply to tell them that I didn't like pretty things.
Remember the one when you were in the boarding school and they took everything away except the coats?
Yes.
I consider you inspirational. I must tell you this because what you went through, a lesser person could be neurotic or psychotic at this particular time, and you seem to have your head together very nice and healthily, and I think other people should look to you for inspiration.
Thank you. I hope so.
Thank you.
I hope so.
Didn't your mother's husband or the servants or anyone try to intervene when all this was happening?
You know, that's a question I've been asked many, many times, and I've tried to figure that out for myself. There were people who worked for us that did try everything they possibly could to help us. Most of those people were fired as soon as my mother found out that they were trying to help us or weren't keeping the rules. Many of her friends voiced disagreement with what she was doing, and they were basically told it was none of their business. The few times that we had any contact with any kind of authorities, they said that they were unable to help us and simply left. So that although it was no secret what was going on in our house, the fact is that nobody ever intervened in such a way that helped us.
Christina, I have a letter here from your sister, which you know nothing about. This is written to me. I just want to read one passage of this letter. She wrote me this in September when she heard you were going to be on the show. This paragraph says, I've heard that you will be interviewing my sister Christina Crawford in October. It's later than that now, of course. I want you to know that my sister Cindy's and my feelings are in complete contrast to those of Christina's. We are ashamed and heartsick that she could come out with such malicious carp about our mother. Please know that there are many of us, especially Cindy and me, who respected, admired, and above all, loved our mother dearly. Sincerely yours, Kathy Crawford Lalonde. How do you respond to that?
Well, I'm not surprised because I've seen other things that my sisters have said, but I think the fairest and kindest thing to say is that their experience of childhood was quite different than mine. They were not born when some of the things that happened to my brother and me took place. They were tiny little babies when other things took place. By the time they were 7, my mother married Alfred Steele, moved to New York, and her life changed enormously.
For the better, would you say?
For the better, of course, yes. I can understand that it's difficult for them to understand what they never experienced. I'm sorry they feel that way, but that's sometimes the way life is.
Mm-hmm. Is the book a form of revenge?
No.
Now, you have a brother who is all through the book, of course, whom you're very close to.
Yes.
And he isn't doing all that well, is he?
My brother has, I think, in some ways suffered much more than I because he was a boy growing up in a house full of women. He had no father. He had nobody to understand from their own growing up years what it was like to be a young man. And my mother was cruel beyond belief to him. And my heart went out to him. I tried in every way I knew and could to help him.
A mischievous boy or what? What was?
He was a boy. He was a normal boy, yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Why was he tied and you were not?
I promised never to get out of bed, and so I was not tied. My brother, being a boy, was, I guess, more active, and my mother simply, first of all, she did not have a very high opinion of most men, and I don't think she had a very high opinion of my brother because of that. And she took out on him, I think, the rage that she was never able to take out on the people that really might have deserved it.
Is that why you think she adopted children? I could never understand why she then, you say, after she did this to you two, then to go on and adopt two more.
2 more, yes.
Well, I don't understand why she was allowed to. But then...
Did any of this get to the authorities, what happened to you and your brother?
Oh, yes.
And she was allowed to adopt 2 other children after that?
Well, she had adopted 2 more children, yes.
Patrick, did you have something you wanted to ask?
No, I just, and I really don't mean to be facetious at all, but that dear lady leapt onto the stage at the Music Box Theatre, Joan Crawford, a few years ago, and I was playing Sleuth in 1972, and the idea was to, it only had two characters in it, this play, and two men, and the idea was to have two women doing it. And Joan Crawford had a great desire to play it. So she came and watched the play, and afterwards, when all the audience had gone, she leapt up on the stage, I don't know what age she was at that time, kissed me slap on the mouth and said, "My God, you do get a workout, don't you?" Which meant I wouldn't touch that part for anything in the world. It was just nice to see one side of her.
I read about your brother. How idle shouldn't fall. I read about the last time your brother spoke to Joan Crawford. He was in New York, and he had had his child, which was her grandchild, and he needed some help. So he called Joan Crawford, and he said, "I need some help, and I'd like to have you come see your grandchild." And she said, "I am not interested. I am not your real mother." And that was like severing whatever relationship was left, period.
The baby needed medical attention.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Your brother.
It's horrendous.
I wanted to continue with your brother. What is he doing?
He's a private person. He's married. He has a family and a job, and I think he is doing the very best he possibly can with his life, and I admire him.
Have you had psychiatric help since all of this?
Yes. When I was in my late 20s, I decided that I couldn't make as much progress as I wanted to as a person, as an adult, and I sought out professional therapy, and I was in group therapy also for about 3 years, I guess.
You were the only member of your family to view your mother's body after she died.
Yes.
Why did you do that? I'm curious.
Because I loved her and I wanted to say goodbye to her.
And you and your brother are the only two that were left out of the will, is that correct?
Yes, we were.
Were you ever told why?
No.
What was the last words, your last words to her, do you recall?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was that I love you, I forgive you, and go in peace.
Now, you're going to derive quite a bit of money from the sale of this book. The book is doing enormously well. And it also has been sold for a motion picture. And I read something that Anne Bancroft is looking at the script. Who would you like to see play your mother in the picture?
Well, I think she would be superb.
Now, will you share this money with your brother?
Oh, well, my brother and I have always been very close, and I think he's going to be well taken care of, yes.
Well, I thank you. I know this isn't easy to do this, and I thank you very much for appearing on the show.
Thank you.
Indeed. Christina Crawford, we're coming right back.